Long ago, in the land of Israel, war loomed over the nation. On one side of the valley of Elah stood the Philistines, fierce enemies of Israel, with their massive armies ready to fight. "Why don't you pick someone to fight me? If he defeats me, we will be your servants. But if I kill him, you will serve us." He took some flour, mixed it with meal, made cakes of barley bread, put them in a sack along with a bottle of wine, and sent them with David to the soldiers. "I have fought and won against a lion and a bear that attacked my sheep. You silly kid, I'll feed your flesh to the birds." But David stood tall and answered, not with fear, but with faith. He had shown everyone that even bullies cannot defeat kindness and bravery. The people cheered his name, praising him as he walked back to the hill of Bethlehem. There, an old man waited. It was David's father Jesse, and when he saw his youngest son returning, he was filled with pride. He had always known David had something special inside him. He could see it in the way David cared for his sheep and the respect the other shepherds had for him. He could see that David wasn't just a little boy anymore. No, he knew his son was ready for anything. You may think you're strong and scary, and you might be. Remember his courage and his faith. And know that you, too, can face your giants and win. No matter how big the problem seems, there's always hope. Sometimes the smallest person can do the most amazing things. And that's all for today. See you next time. But I'm not afraid of you. I'm fighting for my God, who is more powerful than any giant or bully. Today, God is going to help me defeat you and save my people. And I know that I will win. And without hesitation, he reached into his pouch, pulled out a stone, and flung it toward the giant. The stone hit Goliath between the eyes. The giant stumbled, then fell face down to the ground. David ran to the giant, pulled his heavy sword and shield off him, and cut off his head. The Philistines, seeing their champion slain, turned and fled. The Israelites pursued and defeated them. The people celebrated with joy. David, the young shepherd, had become a hero. "This big bad Philistine won't hurt me," he said, looking at the ground. Saul saw the confidence in his eyes and knew he couldn't convince the boy to go home. So he agreed to let David fight Goliath. The king dressed David in his armor, but it was too heavy. So David took it off again and went out to the valley, picked 5 smooth stones from a nearby brook, put them in his pouch, and started running toward the giant. When the giant was finished with his taunts and had returned to the Philistine camp, David arrived. He watched as Goliath paced back and forth, waiting for the Israelites to send someone to fight him. So David went up to the soldiers, told them about the cakes, and asked them to give them to someone who could fight. Soon, word of David's boldness reached King Saul. He sent for him, expecting to see a warrior. Strong and tall, maybe even wearing armor. But when David walked into the tent, he saw a boy. He was young, wearing no armor, and carrying nothing but a sling, a staff, and some stones. His voice echoed like thunder, mocking the Israelites with each passing day. Nobody dared accept his challenge. Even King Saul, the tallest and strongest man in Israel, shrank back in fear. The whole nation was losing heart. They huddled behind their shields, watching and waiting with fear in their eyes. And on the other side, encamped King Saul and the Israelites, ready to defend their homeland. But the situation was not equal. For 40 days, every morning and evening, a terrifying sight emerged from the Philistine ranks. It was a giant named Goliath of Gath. He stood over 9 feet tall, a mountain of a man with a body that gleamed like fire. His helmet, breastplate, and leg guards were all crafted of the finest bronze, shining brightly in the sun. In his hand he held a spear that looked like a javelin. Its iron tip alone weighed as much as a grown man's arm. Every day, Goliath would stomp into the middle of the valley and roar across to the Israelites. But in the hills of Bethlehem, far from the noise of war, a young shepherd named David was tending his father Jesse's sheep. Life was peaceful there, far from the valley of Elah, where the armies clashed. David was the youngest of 8 sons. His older brothers were with Saul's army, fighting the battles and listening to the king. But David stayed behind with the flocks, counting the sheep and keeping them safe. One day, Jesse sent him with bread and grain to check on his brothers. And that's when David heard Goliath's challenge echoing across the hills. Soldiers around him whispered in fear and hurried to tell the king. But David's heart burned with anger. "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" he asked. And that's when Jesse realized what needed to be done. "You want to fight Goliath?" Saul asked, surprised by the kid standing before him, but David nodded. When Goliath saw David coming, he laughed and shouted, "Are you coming at me with those sticks?" That day, the smallest and weakest soldier had become the greatest hero of all. The next time you feel scared or afraid, remember the story of David.